Hi guys, and today I've got for you the Kia EV6. I'm here at the UK Press Media Drive for the car. Now the Kia EV6 is a very interesting new car from Kia. It's their first all-new dedicated EV. They have had EVs since 2015. They introduced it with the Kia Soul, but this one is a new platform. It's a dedicated EV platform that's going to underpin a number of cars. It's actually called EGMP, which stands for Electric Global Modular Platform. Now this platform you'll be familiar, and you'll also be thinking, those of you that are quite astute, that isn't this just Kia's version of the Hyundai Ioniq 5? Well, yeah, you're kind of right, but then you're kind of wrong, because although it's the same platform, pretty much similar drivetrain, but this car has slightly different dimensions, and in fact the batteries are a little bit different as well. The idea with this one, I think, is an attempt to be a little bit more sportier than the Hyundai, which I guess is geared a little bit more towards comfort. The Hyundai is quite striking, but in its own way this has a lot of interesting styling details as well. I'll get into that in a minute. Now, they've had a lot of interest in it. They've already had 1,600 pre-orders in this car. And as I said, Kia have been doing quite well. In fact, you know, this year is actually the 30th anniversary of Kia in the UK. Can you believe that? Wow, I was surprised by that myself. And the interesting thing is that, you know, pretty much 2/3 of their sales, of total Kia sales in the UK, have been in the last decade. So it just shows you the sort of improved popularity of the Korean brand just in recent times. So this car represents the first of 11 new battery electric vehicles from Kia that they aim to introduce by 2026. Now they're going to have battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and hybrids will aim to be 40% of Kia sales by 2030. That's the plan. So what do you get with these cars? Well, you get two drivetrains effectively, and you get three different trim levels to start with, but there will be another car coming next year and the last quarter of next year. But for the time being, what you get is a 226 brake horsepower, 350 Newton meters torque. That's a rear wheel drive car. That's a single motor that has 0 to 62 miles per hour time of 7.3 seconds, 114 miles per hour top speed, and a 328 mile range, or 459 in the city, they say. One speed auto on all of these cars. Then you move up to the next one, which is the one behind me, and this is the all-wheel drive. So there's actually two motors in this. It's a dual motor pack. It's got a 165 kilowatt motor in the back and a 74 kilowatt motor in the front. So you can see there that there's slight more power in the back, so it's sort of rear biased, but not that I think that's going to, I mean, I haven't driven this one yet, but as you'll see, not that I think it's going to make much difference in terms of the attitude of the car. You get 321 brake horsepower, there's 605 Newton meters of torque, 0 to 62 miles per hour in 5.2 seconds, and a top speed 114, same again with this car, but you get a range of 300 miles, and in the city that is equivalent to 391, so slightly less than the other one, but not a huge difference. Now it's a 77.4 kilowatt per hour lithium ion battery. Now they say you can go from 10 to 80% in 18 minutes with a 350 kilowatt fast charger, or 7 hours 20 minutes at home. It's compatible with 800 volt chargers for those of you that are interested, and it can extract power from even a regular one at a much higher speed. Now, like I said, there's going to be a much faster GT version. So the spec that you get at the moment, you get the Air, which is the entry level. Prices for those start at £40,000, just over 40, just under 41,000. In fact, I'll put the prices on the screen, and they go up to 51,945 for the GT S-Line all-wheel drive, which is the one that you see behind me. So that's a 50 grand car behind me. And like I said, you get the Air model, which is the entry. You get GT line and the GT S-Line. The Air only comes as a rear-wheel drive, where the other two are available in both of the drive platforms. The high performance flagship GT car, which is the, like I said, the 577 brake horsepower, arriving at the end of next year, 740 meters of torque, and 0 to 62 miles per hour in 3.5 seconds, top speed of 162 miles per hour. And that one is going to have adaptive dampers, although even these ones have passive dampers which can adjust pressure automatically, so that's quite clever even as it is. I'll go into the spec and stuff inside. It's getting a little bit cold out there, fortunately not raining, so I'll try and do the normal stuff quickly. I'll show you the boot, I'll show you the interior, talk about the front, and then we'll take it for a drive. Now, as usual, make sure that you're subscribing to youtube.com/browncarguy. Make sure that you are following me on browncarguy.com, and also on all the socials, just search for my hashtag, which of course is hashtag browncarguy. And if you enjoy my content, then please think about sponsoring it over at patreon.com/browncarguy. Cool, let's get into this. Check out the styling of this car. Look at the front of the car, and that's the new digital tiger face of the Kia, which is said to be an evolution of Kia's tiger nose grille that they've had. Now this car represents opposites united design, and it's going to inspire all future Kia design. And there's 5 key design pillars in this design philosophy. They're sort of polar opposites, I guess, and they are bold for nature, joy for reason, power to progress, technology for life, and tension for serenity. This one has 20-inch rims, and the rear-wheel drive has 19-inch rims. It's interesting, there's a few detail changes. So for example, the wheel arches on this one are plain compared to the slightly corrugated ones on the other car. Now, it's a good looking car, very sleek. I do like the way that the rear sort of comes out and gives it this very fat sort of shoulders, and it does give it a real stance on the road. The other interesting thing is you can see that rear spoiler, which you can, from the driver's side, you can actually see in your wing mirror, so that's quite interesting. And it is quite an interesting, delicate little spoiler at the back there. The rear is quite nice, and you've got these detailed bits that go into the car, but also, you know, obviously some quite interesting design touches right there. You can just make out at the bottom. Quite a lot of texture has gone into that. This thing has a front boot and a rear boot, so let's start by checking out the rear luggage space. Little button under here. And there you go, there's 490 litres of boot space in this car, and if you drop the 60/40 split folding rear seats, you get 1400 litres of space. Under here there's a little compartment, there's a tyre repair kit in there, and then you've got hooks and stuff like that, including levers to drop those seats, and I guess those are the charging cables in there. Now this button here, this lever I should say, opens the front of the car. Let's see how easy it is to open that one. Now this is the all-wheel drive version, so this has a 20 litre frunk. Interesting. So I guess it's, there it is, it's under there. So it's actually quite small in this one, and again I think more cables in there. But the other one, the rear wheel drive, has about double or over double the space of that one. But this of course has a motor in the front and in the back. Right then, so I have switched on the car, so this is my driving position. So I've set my driving position on this seat to show you how it would be. I'm 6'2" with long legs, of course, and so this is my driving position. And as you can see, I've got tons of room. That's a very interesting headrest on that car. I'll tell you something about the seats later when I get into the front, but very, very interesting. Now I've got to say, tons and tons of knee room. No problem at all. But I am sitting with my feet quite high. It's interesting because, you know, again, the battery pack is underneath this floor. The floor itself is completely flat all the way across, so there's no central tunnel. So 3 people can sit here quite comfortably. But with my longer legs, I am finding that I'm sitting a bit, my knees are a bit higher than I would anticipate. And also there's very little room under the seats, but also I've got the seat on the lower setting because I'm taller. So maybe there might be a bit more room otherwise. But having said that, other than that, that's fine. Headroom also, a little bit of an issue for me. It's very, very close to the top of my head. And this one, I think, with the sunroof also at the front as well. But otherwise, quite nice back here. So we've got an armrest with cup holders. We've got a doorway into the back if you need it. We've got these micro USBs on the sides of the seat. Nice positioning there for both passengers. Interesting texture there. And back here there's nothing there, but there are vents in the door over here. Some nice design. I tell you what, the look, the feel, the quality of the car. I mean, whoa, this is a Kia. This is absolutely amazing. I tell you what, nice place to be back here. Let's see what it's like in the front. That's important. Here we are in front of the Kia EV6. Started raining outside, so the car was already on, as you noticed. Now check out this interior. This is so nicely done. You got these two 12.3-inch screens together to provide this curved feature that they've got here. So what can I tell you about this? Of course, there's increased space in here. This is the interesting thing. The wheelbase is lengthened on this car. It's actually got a longer wheelbase than Kia Sorento, which is Kia's biggest car. That's the big SUV. You've got the curved display. Heads-up display on this one, yeah, so heads-up display, I don't know if you make that out, but this one's got a heads-up display on the GTS line, not on the other cars. But even the regular cars, I think the quality in the interior is pretty much the same. Interesting thing here is this dashboard. It's a different design on each of the cars. This is consistent across, and it changes color with the mode. So if I press the mode there, you can see the screen changing there, but you can also see the color changing there. So that's now in normal mode, and that is sports mode, so it's all gone red. And then of course you got the eco mode, which is the default mode that it starts in. The pedals are basically to increase the regen, which you can see here, so you can go to full one pedal drive mode as well. And this stuff here is textured, is nicely done, beautifully finished. Now the interesting thing is that they're using recycled plastic material in the design of this car. In fact, there's 107 500 milliliter bottles that have gone into this dashboard. That's quite incredible. In addition to that, you've got a choice of black vegan leather, black suede. This one is suede, I think. But vegan leather. I mean, what's vegan leather? How does that work? But anyway, you got vegan leather, and you got black suede with neon green stitching. This isn't the one with. This is not that one. But anyway, 990 millimeters of legroom in the rear. I should have said that when I was in the back. That's what they're saying. And you can recline these seats as well. So in here, you've got all the climate control stuff is down here. The vents are here. You do have a glove box, which is actually very deep, very spacious glove box. That got a huge cavity. This is like an open space here. You've got USBs down there. You've got a big old bin down there. That's quite handy. This floating center console, which is very cool. I do like the arrangement here. That's your starter button. That's neat. And then you've got your heated seats and cool seats and heated steering and everything there. That's your transmission selector, which is just a knob. You've got buttons there. You've got wireless charging, but you've also got USBs, as I said, cup holders. And on here, you've got another quite a deep bin there. Over here you've got your steering wheel, which in this one is a flat bottom steering wheel, but you've got all the remotes on there. It's got all the tech on it, as you'd expect, just to run you quickly through that stuff. You've got forward collision, highway driving assist, so that's autopilot systems, adaptive cruise, lane keep assist, driver attention monitor, blind spot collision avoidance, rear cross traffic alert, safe exit assist, and remote parking, which you can just do with the key fob. Down here you've got some more controls, and as I said, you can configure that. And here you can actually go through and see what your driving is doing, but you can also select what you want to see there, so sat nav and all the rest of it. So there you go. Time to take it for a drive. Right then, let's give this a go. I have actually just driven the higher spec version of this car, so I'm doing the GT line. To be honest, I can't really detect much difference. I mean, it's all, the screens are as big in this car, the tech seems to be as much in this car as that one. The trim is just as nice in this car. Slightly different pattern is all I can detect, but it's got the lights here that I presume change with the, yes they do. So we are in eco mode at the moment. So I can't really detect much difference, so it's good to just give this one a try on camera. But I just did drive its identical, well, drivetrain identical car for a considerable distance over motorways and towns and roads like this as well. And I found the ride like this one This one, I don't know. The wheels are the same. I checked. They're both 19-inch rims, so they're the same wheels. This one seems a bit fidgety, but I think it's only because of this road. And the thing that I found with that car was that the ride, to be honest, I couldn't find any cause for complaint, considering that I normally have an issue with electric vehicles because I find them a little stiff. Most of the time, in 80 to 90% of circumstances, it was very smooth, very controlled, very composed. There's only when things got rough, and maybe that's what's happening here with this road. And for example, like when I encountered a series of rumble strips, that it got quite jarring. But other than that, the ride was fantastic. Similarly, the brake, now I'm going to go into one, this is a normal mode at the moment. No, actually, it's on level 2 or 3 of one pedal. And I'm going to go to full one pedal because I really like driving the one pedal. Because literally, once you get used to it, you can modulate your speed very easily on that one pedal, no problem at all. Right now we are in eco mode, and it's quite easy. I'll have to film these instrument panel displays later on, but it's like a pair of flaps on the normal mode. On the eco mode, it's like a pair of flaps, like a pair of wings that are displayed on the instrument panel. And when I'm going into normal mode, which I'm going to go now, it's kind of upward. It's a bit more upward. It's sort of more like a valley. Now, normal mode is the one that I would recommend. Now, the problem with the eco mode is that, of course, it's saving you. I mean, if you're running low on juice and you think, oh, I need to save some charge, go onto eco mode. But what I find it very gloopy. I find it very slow motion. It's like trying to run at the bottom of a swimming pool. You know, everything is in slow motion. It just feels like it's just retarding you in every way. So I don't really like that too much. The normal mode is absolutely fine. And I think that's the one that you're going to use most of the time. Although it starts in the eco mode by default, so you have to actually switch it using this button here into that mode. Just like you have to switch the pedals up into it's full on one pedal now. So you can literally come. It's very smooth, the one pedal. You can literally come to a stop. It's very smooth, even at the bottom end. You know, the lower speed, the movement is very linear, and you know exactly when it's going to stop. It actually, once you start to learn it, it's very easy to use, and you don't want to use anything else. Top tip for people that do drive electric cars and use one pedal modes, which I've recently found out from an engineer, is that many of those cars are suffering from brake problems because the brakes aren't being used. So every now and then go back to normal mode and hammer the brakes, because that's what you need to do to make sure they're okay. Anyway, coming back to this car. So I'm now going to, because the road's quite nice, so I'm not going to go straight up into sports mode. Now instantly with sports mode, the car sort of lunges forward. It feels like it's been taken off the leash a little bit. Steering seems to weighten up a little bit, and as I've gone into sports mode, I'm now entering a 30 zone. Let's see how long that lasts for, so I can still talk about the car a bit more. Now we have it's gone Tron-like on the instrument panel, so we've got like a squarish thing. It's gone red, and the red is echoed here on these lights here in the dashboard itself, which is really kind of cool actually if you think about it. So that's quite neat. Now, let's talk about the driving position a little bit whilst I'm here. Now, this car that I'm in now has got manual, manual settings. So it's got levers, a couple of levers here, one for the base to raise and lower it, and one for the back. What I found is that with the electric one, I actually struggled to get comfortable for quite a while. And in this one, I've been able to get comfortable almost immediately. And I think maybe because of the simplicity of arrangement, I'm not sure. Maybe now my body has got used to it because I've spent, a couple of hours in the other car. But initially, I would say about half an hour of me fiddling with the seats to really get comfortable. It took a while, honestly, and I don't know. There's something about the way. I think one of the things that you feel when you get in the car is you think it's going to be a compact and sporty car, but actually it's an SUV. It's a crossover. Similarly, when you get in the car and when you're sitting in it, the car feels. You approach the car, you don't think it's going to be that big. When you first get into the car, you feel like it's quite a big car, maybe because you're sitting higher, maybe because there's quite a bit of the body. Now I'm on a tiny road, I feel like it's a big car, there's quite a bit of the body sweeping off, to the left. But as you drive it, actually, it starts to shrink wrap around you, so it doesn't really it doesn't feel that big when you're on the move. Apart from when it gets really tight like this, but generally it's fine. So all of that is good. Visibility all around. Now visibility at the rear, the window is quite steep. Now one thing I found because of the rain is that there's no wiper that I can find at the back. And actually when the rain was heavy, it did need a wiper at the back because that window is quite steeply inclined. Okay, so here we go. I mean, there is a little bit of an artificial sound, but it's not as overt or as obvious as, for example, another car I tried recently, which was the Audi e-tron, which made a very, very obvious and clear artificial sci-fi type noise. This one just makes a kind of whooshing noise. It's not that overt. I must say the stereo was very nice in the GT line spec that I drove. I don't know if that's the one with the Meridian system. I'll put the spec on the screen if I can find out. But it had a fantastic sound system in it. Could have done with a little bit more bass, but otherwise very good. And pretty much, after a while you forget about whether or not it's making any kind of a noise because you're just listening to the stereo. One of the things I found when pushing it a little bit hard, and the roads are a little bit wet and slippery, and so I was a little bit anxious because these are rear-wheel drive cars. But there is absolutely no hint of oversteer, none whatsoever. At the most, there's a suggestion. I wouldn't even say it's a suggestion, but there's a hint, maybe if you like, of understeer. But honestly, the car is very well composed. And in fact, in one or two corners, which I was anticipating maybe a little bit of movement, there wasn't, which means that the car is very grippy. Now, it's a heavy car. Now, it's 2,000 kilograms pretty much, I think just short of that. So it's very planted, obviously. It's very settled down. But aside from that, the fact is that it's very composed. The body movement is very limited. The grip is very good. And whilst I would hesitate to say the turn-in is eager or sharp, but the turn-in is certainly assured. And you're never going, oh, will it turn? No, it will turn in. And then you think, oh, if I turn it in and I dump the throttle in a rear-wheel drive car, will it spin? Will it do? No, because the way it delivers the power, and even in sports mode I found this, unlike some other electric cars, where you just get an instant torrent of torque, if you like, it just goes bonkers. This one doesn't necessarily do that. This one pretty much has a very progressive delivery of power. So what it will do is, I don't know if it's traction control systems. I'm suspecting that there is an element of that. I mean, certainly it wouldn't be difficult to control the deployment of power. So even if you put your foot down immediately in an instant, don't expect the rear wheels to break traction and spin. They're just not going to do that. It's just, to be honest, it's just not in their nature. So overall then, with this car, considering that it's a rear-wheel drive, does that mean that it's a more enticing prospect than the all-wheel drive? Well, we'll drive the all-wheel drive next, so then we'll find out. What I would say is that I don't think that if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get this one because it's rear drive, I don't think that you'll see that typical dynamics that you might expect in a rear drive largish car to be apparent in this car. It's very short footage, it's very safe. Having said that, it's not dull. It's interesting to drive. It's fairly enjoyable to drive, but it's not a sports car, I wouldn't say. It's just sportier, if you like. And the performance too is not that electrified instant acceleration that you often get from cars like this. It's more sort of gradual, more sort of considered. It's more considered, if you like, in its deployment. Whilst I'm here, the other thing I will talk about is the active cruise. Of course, we've got all the drive safety systems and what have you. I found the active cruise with the steering control, I found to be very, very aggressive. In fact, this one's now doing it as well, because there's two modes of that. There's the autopilot mode where it kind of takes over, but you can't take your hand off the wheel because it will ask you to grab the steering wheel again. And then there's the other mode where it will still correct itself all the time, so it's like bouncing off the lanes and stuff like that. And what I do is I press and hold the steering button on here to actually switch it off completely, because yeah, it does get a little bit annoying after a while. But if you're going to use adaptive cruise, then of course that will come back on again. The other thing I just noticed is that the spec-wise, this car doesn't have the flat bottom steering that the GT line had. So that's about the only difference in the steering. Otherwise, it's got all the remotes and everything, the mode button, everything is in the same place. So again, just pushing it now through the corners a little bit. And as I said, I mean, on this rough road, it's being bounced around, it's being moved around, but there is no hint of it getting, disturbed in terms of its control or in terms of its grip or anything like that. It's very well composed. So it's a car that even in rear-wheel drive mode, you could be quite reassured of its composure and its ability to keep you safe, actually, even in pretty wet conditions. Now, one of the things I found that even when you're driving this sort of thing, when you're doing this sort of twisties and you're kind of enjoying the corners a little bit, you can still have it in one pedal mode. And it actually means you're pounding the brakes less, and therefore there's less chance of brake fade, I suppose. Because actually the moment that you kind of ease off the throttle, it starts to slow. So you can really modulate your speed into and out of corners. So actually, it's kind of interesting to be able to do it in this mode. But you can, of course, have it in normal mode. I've done that. I've tried that. Go back into normal. There you go. There you go. This is the way it gets upset on rougher roads. On normal roads, it's absolutely fine. But yeah, go back into the normal braking mode, and you can just rely on those brakes. They're pretty good, actually. Right, just there on a very slippery surface, I finally got a hint of understeer, but you know, it was momentary. Very, very good. I mean, all-wheel drive. Do we really need it? Let's find out. Okay, so here we are. Let's... Oh, that's interesting. It actually gave me...
Keep straight on this road.
Okay, she's going to continue talking now, aren't she? I've got to follow the sat-nav because we're obviously on the pressed media drive route. So forgive that sat-nav that's going to intrude. Anyway, I've got it in eco mode at the moment. I'm going to go into normal mode. Look at that, loads of water. It's raining heavily, but I'm assured because I'm in the all-wheel drive car. So far, you can immediately feel the difference between the other car and this car, in the sense that you know that you do feel. I mean, I haven't actually done full throttle yet. I've literally just pulled out of the hotel, but you do already start to feel that you know there's a little bit more pull in this car. There's a little bit more eagerness straight away. You know, in this machine. Hopefully going to get a bit of space here. So in the wet weather, let me punch it. Okay, right, now we're talking. Now this is, it's amazing what a couple of seconds acceleration difference makes, right? Let's go actually into sports mode. And, oh, okay, yeah, that's somehow even more electric, even more enthusiastic. So yeah, we are now really motoring. There's more of a noise in this car, I think, compared to the other car. It just feels like that to me. You're getting a little bit more of that electric sci-fi type whine. Or maybe I just had the stereo on in the others. And I've got the one pedal regen on, but I'm also using the brakes. I've got, is that on full regen? Let me just check once I straighten the wheel. It's on full regen now, so yeah, now it's on full regen. So I was just one pip short. So there's various levels that you can go to get the full regen, you see. But very reassuring. I mean, the steering is weightened up a little bit, obviously now in sports mode. But I think the biggest difference between this car and that car, and obviously there isn't that huge feeling of, like, sometimes when you go in a regular petrol car, you go from, you know, front or rear wheel drive into an all-wheel drive, and you can sort of feel the mass of the extra transmission. You're not really feeling that because the car's already quite heavy anyway, with the batteries. So the mass is coming from the batteries, not from the electric motors, you know. So it's not so much that, but I guess you just feel some reassurance now that you've got drive at the front as well as the back. But okay, yeah, I mean, the acceleration and the grip that you've got when you put your foot down, it's quite extraordinary. That's so much better. I can't wait to find out what the GT version is going to be like. The nearly 550 horsepower plus, that one is coming out at the end of next year.
In half a mile.
Wow. Oh, I like the heads-up display. The navigation in the heads-up display is actually giving me arrows to show me where I'm supposed to be going. So there's a tiny little road. This is very bumpy. Now on the bumpy road yesterday, I did find that the car fidgeted a bit. Yeah, it's the same on this one actually. Yeah, because it's the top spec one that's going to have the adaptive suspension. This one does have suspension that adapts, but it's a little bit more passive, if you like, I suppose. And so the ride is normally really, really good, apart from when the road gets really quite bad, and then it starts to fidget a little bit, and you find you start to feel that rigidity that you do get with electrified cars, with, you know, where the platforms appear to have been stiffened because of the battery packs in the cars. But oh boy, the grip and the acceleration that you get, oh my god, that's absolutely fantastic. Actually quite extraordinary, actually. Very reassuring. I have to say, I think the all-wheel drive is definitely the sportier proposition in terms of just, yeah, if you want to enjoy the performance, yeah, it's definitely this one. There's a slightest hint of hesitation, perhaps, when you first get onto that throttle, but otherwise, the performance is pretty much there. So I'm on this tiny little road, and again, it's doing that thing with the big car. It's a kind of a largish car, but it's kind of shrinking around you. It's not really feeling, apart from if somebody comes the other way, because it's a very narrow road, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is quite a big car. But otherwise, it's generally not a problem. But brakes are good, very linear. I wouldn't say they're bitey. They are just progressive, so they're just as you would expect. So even punching it on the corner in completely slippery, wet weather, and there's no hint at all in this car. Even in the other one, when I did that, there was a hint of maybe a slight bit of movement, but there's no hint of movement at all. So the all-wheel drive is definitely working to great effect. Fairly accurate to place as well. You know, I'll tell you what, that's really, really impressive and really, really enjoyable. So there you go. I think that's the difference between the rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. There is actually quite a significant difference in terms of its dynamics, attitude, and handling. It's just slightly even more composed, even more direct, if you like, to an extent, but certainly more grippy, more reassured.
Turn right.
But more than that, I think, is the performance aspect of it, and the ability to deliver that performance in a measured but at the same time exciting way, I think is a real boon for this version. So honestly, if it's me, I'd say spend more money and get this one, both for the performance and for the added reassurance of having this all-wheel drive version. So there you go. There is my review of the brand new Kia EV6. So what a car, interesting, and I think yeah, bodes well for things to come, especially with the range. I've been using it in sports mode, and yeah, it's still not 100%. I use 5% in what was that? In about 25 minutes. Not bad. Oh, actually charging along though. That's significant. So there you go. There's my review. Let me know what you think of the Kia EV6 in the comments above below. Would love to hear your thoughts on the car. Thanks so much for watching. A big thank you to my top tier patron and sponsor Jay Williams over Air Technic. Check out their shop for brakes, exhaust, body kits, and of course suspension. Plus, thanks to Muhammad Ali Ahmed and Tom Conway Gordon, who are both tier 4 patrons, and of course all of these guys for also subscribing to my Patreon account and contributing so much towards helping me to continue creating this content. Join them over at patreon.com/browncarguy, and of course make sure that you are subscribing, liking, and sharing this channel. Hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any of my videos, and also check out browncarguy.com and follow me on all social media channels. Just search for my hashtag, which of course is #BrownCarGuy.